I returned to my hometown in Alabama last week. I wanted to dig up strange stories for my freelance piece. I thought being back would inspire me. The town felt both familiar and strange, with its grand antebellum homes and those old willow trees swaying in the wind. I rented a small apartment, a cozy place in a building that used to be a general store. I thought it might help me reconnect with my roots. On my first night in that apartment, I sat at the desk. I adjusted the lamp and started typing. It was quiet, just my fingers tapping away. Suddenly, I heard a faint tapping on the window. I shrugged it off, thinking it was a branch. I went back to work. But every night after that, the tapping returned and grew louder. I tried to ignore it. Maybe I was just tired. On the second night, I noticed something move outside. A shadow zipped by so quickly that I couldn't see what it was. My heart raced. I felt a chill. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination. Maybe a raccoon. But even then, I felt uneasy. The next day, I found my notebook open to a page I hadn't touched. It had a strange doodle on it, a crude drawing of a face. I hadn't drawn it. I considered asking my landlord, but I didn't want to sound crazy. Maybe I was just stressed about deadlines. That night, the tapping came back even louder. It felt like a plea for help. I opened the window to check, but the street was empty. I quickly shut it, feeling panic set in. As I dug deeper into local lore, I uncovered unsettling stories. A woman had vanished from a nearby inn. There were whispers of a man seen wandering the streets during storms. The stories started to weigh on me. Each tale made me feel lost, like I was losing touch with reality. Then came the worst night. Late again, I heard the tapping. I sat still, heart pounding. I opened the window again. The air felt heavy, and the darkness wrapped around me. For some reason, I felt an urge to step outside, like a pull. It scared me, but I couldn't fight it. I heard a voice breathily whisper, "Help me." I turned. The room felt cold, and I was alone. In that moment, I froze. My mind raced. Were these things real? Or was it just my tired brain playing tricks? I couldn't tell anymore. What remained was a suffocating silence that filled my apartment. I wanted to believe it was all made up, but the unease settled in my gut. As I lay in bed waiting for dawn, the echo of that whisper haunted me. I didn't want to hear it again. I didn't want to stay. But curiosity pulled me deeper into a mystery I didn't fully understand. The next day I woke up exhausted. The whisper lingered in my mind, refusing to fade away. I decided I needed to gather more information about the local legends. Maybe understanding the stories would help me make sense of what was happening. After all, these whispers and shadows had to come from somewhere. I headed down to the old diner in town. It was a popular spot for residents. I hoped someone might have more insight. The moment I walked in, the smell of coffee and greasy food hit me. The chatter of locals filling in the silence felt comforting. I grabbed a seat at the counter and ordered a coffee. As I sipped, I overheard a group of older men talking about the inn where the woman had vanished. I tried to blend in, listening closely. They mentioned her name, Clara. Apparently she was well liked, known for her kind heart. But the night she disappeared, a storm hit. They said she went outside to help someone who was lost. No one ever saw her again. My ears perked up with that last bit. "What do you mean she went outside?" I asked, trying to sound casual. The men looked at me with a mix of surprise and caution. "She went out in the middle of the storm. Folks say she heard a voice calling for help. Some think it was a prank. Others say it was the spirit of someone lost." One of the older men shook his head. Whatever it was, it didn't end well for her. The word sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling of the voice I had heard. I excused myself, needing to collect my thoughts. I stepped outside, hoping some fresh air would clear my mind. As I stood on the diner steps, I noticed something odd by the old willow tree across the street. There was a small object half buried in the ground. Instinct kicked in, and I walked over to investigate. Kneeling down, I brushed away the dirt with my fingers. That's when I saw it, a tarnished locket. I opened it, revealing a faded photograph of a young woman. I recognized her immediately. It was Clara. My heart raced. Was this hers? Did she lose it the night she vanished? I felt a sudden compulsion to learn more, to piece this all together. But just as I stood up, I heard the tapping sound again, sharper and clearer this time. It echoed like a warning. Before I could process what was happening, the wind picked up, carrying a voice. "Help me." But this time, it wasn't just the memory. It felt closer, like it was calling from behind me. I turned slowly, dread creeping in. To my horror, I saw a figure standing near the edge of the diner parking lot. It was a shadowy form, unmoving. My breath quickened as I realized I wasn't alone. I froze, my hands trembling as I clutched the locket. The shadowy figure seemed to beckon to me, its outline fuzzy but unmistakably human. Every instinct told me to run, to flee from whatever this presence was. But something held me there, rooted to the spot. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't answer. It remained still, a dark silhouette against the dim light of the diner's neon sign. The wind rustled the branches of the willow, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Suddenly the figure stepped forward and I felt a rush of icy air wash over me. My heart raced even faster. Just as I turned to flee, a soft but firm voice broke the silence. "Please." I hesitated. Was this voice the same one that had called to Clara? The wind carried desperation. Whatever was happening, it felt as if I was caught in the middle of something much larger than myself. I stepped back, my mind racing. The figure took another step closer, and for a moment it flickered like a dying light. I could see details forming, the outline of a dress, the length of dark hair. My breath caught in my throat. Was this Clara? "Clara?" I said hesitantly. The figure's eyes, pinched with sorrow, locked onto mine. "Help me," it pleaded again, and I could see the regret etched deep within its expression. There was no mistaking the plea. My mind spun with questions. What did she need help with? Why was she here? Then, without warning, the figure dissolved into a cloud of mist, swirling away into the night like smoke. I stumbled back, nearly losing my footing. I was left standing alone, confusion gripping me. I needed to understand this. I needed answers. My thoughts flashed back to the locket in my hand. Clara had something to say, but I wasn't sure what it was. I glanced at the diner, at the faces of the locals through the window. They seemed oblivious to the supernatural drama unfolding just steps away. I made a decision then. I would not leave until I uncovered the truth. My instinct pulled me toward the inn, the place where everything had begun. With urgency coursing through me, I hurried back to my car. The locket felt heavy in my pocket, a tangible reminder of Clara's pain. As I drove toward the inn, thoughts swirled in my mind. Would I find answers there? Or was I stepping into a trap set by forces I couldn't comprehend? When I arrived, the inn loomed like a dark figure against the night sky. Dim light flickered from the windows. I parked and took a deep breath before stepping out. The air was thick with tension. Just as I approached the entrance, a sharp noise echoed from inside the inn, a loud crash followed by a shattering sound. My heart raced again, and the instinct to run surged through me, but I forced myself to move forward. Whatever awaited me inside, I couldn't turn back now. As I pushed the door open, the scent of aged wood and dust hit me. The chatter was gone, replaced by an eerie silence. I stepped inside, my heart pounding, ready to confront whatever lingered in the shadows. I was about to find out if Clara's story would lead to clarity or a deeper abyss. The hinges creaked as I stepped into the inn, the familiar scent of old wood swirling around me like memories. It was too quiet. I peered into the dimly lit hallway, half expecting someone to leap out and greet me. But there was only the thick silence pressing down like a weight. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing faintly. No answer. Just the unsettling hum of stillness in response. I took a step deeper inside, the floorboards creaking under my weight. Each sound felt amplified, like warning bells in a deserted place. I moved cautiously toward the source of the crash. The main dining room was just past the hallway and shrouded in light shadows. As I pushed the door open wider, I scanned the area. Tables were overturned, chairs scattered as if a storm had swept through. And then I spotted it. A shattered mirror on the floor, shards reflecting my anxious gaze. A shiver ran down my spine. "Clara?" I called again, the name almost a prayer. I stepped closer, careful not to cut myself on the glass. Each shattered piece felt like a fragment of her story, waiting to be picked up and understood. That's when I saw it. In the far corner, where the evening light barely reached, a figure emerged briefly before vanishing into the darkness. My breath hitched as I blinked, attempting to process what I had just witnessed. What was happening? Was it just my imagination playing tricks on me? I edged forward, the adrenaline coursing through me now, a mix of fear and curiosity. The weight of Clara's locket pressed against my chest, almost pulsing with each beat of my heart. I reached into my pocket and grasped it tightly. It felt sticky with something I couldn't identify, as though it held the remnants of her presence. Suddenly, a soft whimper reached my ears, slicing through my thoughts. I froze, straining to listen. It was faint but distinctive. My instincts screamed for me to leave, but the urge to find Clara, to bring her peace, overrode my fear. I followed the sound quietly, turning down the corridor toward the source. As I neared, the whimper grew louder, transforming into hushed sobs. My heart ached at the sound. "Clara?" I whispered again. The noise stopped abruptly. An overwhelming silence fell, suffocating yet expectant. I pressed on, each step reluctant but resolute. Then I noticed a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. It was the door to the old storage room. It loomed with an unsettling air, and I hesitated before pushing it open. Inside, the air was colder, thicker. The shadows shifted in the corners and something flickered in the darkness. A gust of wind swept through as I stepped inside, making the hair on my arms stand. Then everything went dark. The door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the walls. I stumbled, heart racing, as I felt my way through the pitch blackness. "What's happening?" I whispered, panic rising. As I fumbled for the door, the locket in my hand felt icy, and I finally understood. Whatever Clara needed wasn't just a whisper away. Something was very wrong, and I had to figure it out before it was too late. The darkness pressed in around me, almost suffocating in its intensity. I could hardly see my own hand in front of my face. I took a shaky breath, trying to calm the frantic beating of my heart. "Clara?" I called once more, my voice fragile in the silence. Nothing answered. I listened hard, straining for any sign of life, but all I could hear was my own rapid breaths. In that oppressive blackness, my mind began to conjure images. What if Clara was trapped here? Or worse, what if something else was? As I reached out my hands to find the door, I bumped into a hard surface. I jolted back, fear flooding through me. A cold chill swept over my skin, and my instincts screamed at me to get out. But I couldn't leave, not without knowing what happened to Clara. I took a cautious step forward, my foot brushing against something on the floor. I squatted down and ran my fingers over a fabric, a piece of Clara's shirt. It was stained. My stomach twisted as I recalled the look on her face before she disappeared, the fear that had clouded her eyes. I tucked the fabric into my pocket, determined to hold on to every part of her. Suddenly I heard that whimper again, clearer this time. It sounded like it was coming from directly ahead of me. I froze, heart pounding. "Clara? Is that you?" I asked, this time with more urgency. A soft rustling came in response, followed by a whisper. "Help me." The voice was weak, so faint I could barely differentiate its sound from the shadows. "Where are you?" I didn't know if I should rush toward the voice or proceed cautiously. The last thing I wanted was to frighten Clara, or worse, put her in danger. The whisper came again. "In the corner." The corner. I turned slowly, the stillness unnerving. I walked carefully toward the voice, wiping away sweat as it dripped down my brow. My instincts warned me that I was not alone in this room. A quick glance over my shoulder revealed nothing, but the sensation of being watched made my skin crawl. As I drew closer to the corner, the darkness seemed thicker, more oppressive. I reached out, fingers brushing against a wall. Something was there. My heart raced as I grasped at the air, feeling for any sign of Clara. Then, my skin prickled with fear. A low growl echoed from behind me. I spun around just in time to see a dark silhouette emerge from the shadows, something watching me. My breath quickened, and every instinct demanded I turn and flee. But I held my ground. "Clara?" I shouted, my voice trembling. The figure didn't move. It just lingered, blocking my only escape route. "Help me." The voice came again, louder now but tangled with desperation. It felt like a lifeline thrown from the depths of a dark sea. I had to confront my fear. With my heart racing, I took a step toward the figure, ready to fight whatever it was. Suddenly, the light flickered back to life, revealing a room filled with ghostly shapes. The figure stood before me and I froze. It wasn't Clara. "Why are you here?" it hissed, and in that moment I realized I had just entered a web of secrets I wasn't prepared for. The figure leaned closer and I could make out its gaunt features. It had hollow eyes that seemed to absorb all light. I felt a chill that traveled straight to my bones. "You shouldn't have come," it warned, its voice a low rasp. Panic surged through me. My first instinct was to back away, to run, but the voice crying out in the corner pulled me back. "Clara needs help. Where is she?" I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. I refused to let fear take control. "She's closer than you think," it replied, its lips curling into a wicked grin. "But finding her will cost you." I dropped my gaze, searching for any sign of Clara. The cold room felt smaller, claustrophobic, as I weighed my options. I could flee, leave this utter nightmare behind, but then Clara might be lost forever. "Tell me what you want," I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. The figure's expression morphed into something almost menacing, its breath heavy and fast. "Every choice has a consequence," it said, low and deliberate. "You can save her, but you must give up your own light." Confusion mixed with fear. What did that even mean? What light could I give up? I thought of Clara again, the fear on her face before she vanished, and it filled me with a fierce resolve. I couldn't abandon her now. Before I could respond, a sharp crash sounded from behind me. I whipped around just in time to see an ancient wardrobe shake violently. My heart raced as I realized I wasn't just in any room suffocated by darkness. I was in a place of lost souls. "What is that?" I turned back to the figure, but it had vanished. In its place was a ripple of shadows, twisting and swirling in the corners of the room. The wardrobe groaned again and the door flung wide open. I hesitated. Should I move forward or run away? I took a breath, forcing myself to confront what was inside. As I stepped closer, I saw Clara's shirt lying crumpled in the darkness, and next to it was a small glimmering object. My stomach twisted. I reached out, fingers trembling as I grasped it. When I pulled it closer to my face, I realized it was a pendant, ornate and beautiful. But those twisted shadows were creeping closer and the atmosphere grew thick with dread. I had to act fast. Just as I reached for Clara's shirt, the shadows surged around me. "Time's running out," a voice hissed from inside the wardrobe. Suddenly, a flash of blinding light surged through the room, illuminating every corner. "Don't let the darkness take you," it cried. A wave of something cold enveloped me, and I felt as if the very shadows were alive, clawing at my skin. I needed to get out before they dragged me in. With Clara's shirt in one hand and the pendant in the other, I dashed toward the exit, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. I was trapped. Then, as the shadows closed in, I heard Clara's voice once more, sharper now, more demanding. "Help me, please." I felt the urgency swell inside me. I had to find a way through, or risk losing her forever. But what if the price to save her was more than I could pay? The shadows thickened, pressing against my skin like a damp cloth, making it hard to breathe. I kept shuffling back, eyes darting for any escape route, but the wall seemed to close in tighter with each passing second. Clara's voice rang out again, echoing in my mind. "Help me, please." It was the only thing that pierced through the desperation clouding my thoughts. I held on to the pendant tightly. Whatever power it had, I had to believe it could help me somehow. "What do you want me to do?" I murmured into the suffocating darkness, hoping it might respond. The air trembled, and in that moment, I felt a pull. The pendant in my hand began to radiate warmth, surprising me in contrast to the chilling shadows. Without thinking, I closed my eyes and held it out. "I'll give you this. Just show me where Clara is." A gust of wind swept through the room, sending wisps of shadows spiraling away from me, and the wardrobe creaked ominously. I opened my eyes to see a faint light flickering from inside. It was like a small beacon, fighting against the darkness. I had no idea if it was a trick or my imagination, but I felt an urgency. I had to take the risk. I stepped towards the wardrobe, inching closer to the glow. The light flickered again, revealing a glimpse of something, or someone, inside. "Clara!" I called out, suddenly hopeful. But the light vanished, just as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the shadows rushing back in, whispering menacingly. "You're too late," they hissed, the tone mocking. "No!" I shouted defiantly. Pushing through the fear gnawing at me, I lunged forward, ready to dive into the wardrobe. My hand met something solid, and with one hard shove the doors burst open as if in response to my determination. Inside, I found not just Clara's shirt, but a swirling void enveloped in darkness. I peeked into the depths, struggling to see anything beyond the immediate shadows. My heart pounded. "Clara! Can you hear me?" Silence fell, heavy and thick. My stomach knotted and panic threatened to spiral out of control. Just as I stepped back again, I felt something tug at the bottom of my shirt, a cold, clammy hand. I gasped, my eyes wide, and turned slowly. A small figure emerged from the darkness, eyes wide with fear that mirrored my own. But it wasn't Clara. It was a girl about her age, with tangled hair and a face smeared with dirt. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll take you too." "Who will?" I asked, feeling my gut twist. But before she could answer, the shadows swelled around us, whispering secrets too dreadful to understand. I knew I had to act. I couldn't let Clara be lost because of my hesitation. I looked back at the wardrobe, wondering if I could somehow send the girl back in and close the doors on whatever was chasing her. But the weight of darkness pressed heavy against my shoulders, reminding me that time was running out. Then, out of nowhere, something cold brushed my ankle, and a dreadful realization hit me. I wasn't alone anymore. A low, guttural growl reverberated through the air, crawling up my spine like icy fingers. I felt trapped. The girl's terrified eyes were pleading for help, and the shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own. I couldn't turn to run. It felt as if something was anchoring me in place, drawing me deeper into this nightmare. The girl pointed toward the wardrobe. "We have to go back. It's safer." "What?" I asked, confusion mixing with fear. "With them chasing us? Please, they won't take you if you go in." Her voice was urgent, desperate. I glanced back at the churning blackness behind me. It was thicker now, writhing as if something was moving within it, hungry. "Clara!" I shouted, needing to believe she might somehow hear me. But the shadows responded, swelling and tightening around me like a snake ready to strike. "No, we can't let them get you!" The girl grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong despite her size. The fear in her expression shook me. "You have to trust me." I hesitated, scanning the depths of the wardrobe. Torn between saving myself and searching for Clara, I felt my heart race. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I've seen what they can do," she whispered urgently. "They'll drag you into the dark, and then you'll never come back." I glanced at the swirling shadows, realizing we were out of time. Whatever was chasing us was closing in. "Okay," I shouted. "Let's go." With my heart in my throat, I made a decision. I crouched down, pulling myself and the girl toward the wardrobe's maw. It was dark but warm, like stepping into a living pulse. I squeezed my eyes shut, as if that would make the encroaching darkness go away. The moment we entered the wardrobe, it was as if a comforter of darkness wrapped us in an embrace. The cold air pressed against my skin, chilled and eerie. Beside me, the girl gasped for breath. "Stay close. We need to find the way out." What I saw in front of me made me freeze. The surrounding space wasn't just a wardrobe, it was a cavern of endless night dotted with shadows and shapes moving within. Dark memories hung in the air, like lost souls waiting to drag us in. "Where's Clara?" I called out, my voice trembling this time. A flicker of light in the distance caught my attention. I ran towards it, dragging the girl along. But as we moved, I felt the ground shift beneath us, dragging us back. Shadows morphed into arms reaching out to us. "Don't look back," she cried, pulling me forward just as hands clawed at my edges. I stumbled, practically falling, yet I couldn't let go. That's when I saw it. A figure standing in the distance, bathed in a halo of light. "Clara!" I screamed, recognizing her silhouette. But just as I sped forward, the figure shifted, revealing a twisted face with hollow eyes, eyes that promised despair. I faltered. "What? Who is that?" The girl grabbed my wrist, her eyes wide with terror. "We have to run now." I turned back, but it was too late. The shadows surged toward us, whispers filling the air like a sinister chorus. We were trapped in a world that wanted nothing more than to drag us into its depths. The darkness pressed closer, a swirling mass of whispers and shadows. My heart raced. "What do we do?" I gasped, pulling in a shaky breath. "Keep running!" the girl yelled, her grip tightening on my wrist as she led me through the maze of darkness. I couldn't see where we were going, but I trusted her instinct more than my own. We sprinted forward, the shadows clawing at my back, their whispers a maddening cacophony that sent my mind into a spiral. Memories, lost and tangled. Faces I didn't recognize swirled around me, each one leaving an impression of sorrow. I felt hands grasping at my ankles, dragging me down. I stumbled, almost falling, but the girl pulled me upright just in time. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," I shouted, panic rising in my throat. Suddenly she stopped, spinning to face me. "Listen, the way out is close." Her eyes darted around, searching for something, anything. "But we have to be quick and smart." "Smart?" I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. "We're trapped in a nightmare." "Exactly," she snapped, urgency blaring in her voice. "There's a door. A different one. We just need to find it." Hope flickered, but I could barely process it. "How do you know?" "How do you know we'll find it?" "I've been here before, I know the layout," she insisted, her eyes fierce as shadows danced just outside our reach. "But I can't do it alone." As thoughts of Clara nagged at me, I hesitated. I needed to find her. But the fear of what was lurking in the shadows brought me back to the present. Whether it was Clara or me, we needed to survive. "Okay," I finally conceded. "Lead the way." We pressed on, weaving through the solid layers of obscurity. I could feel the weight of the darkness twisting and contorting around us. Every step felt like a gamble. I focused on the flicker of hope in the girl's eyes, clinging to the chance that she knew what she was doing. Then the shadows shifted dramatically. A doorway emerged. It glimmered faintly in the dark, almost hidden. "There!" she shouted, pointing. But the moment we turned toward it, a fierce wind rushed through us, darkening the air and sending the whispers into a frenzy. "No, not again!" the girl cried, backing away from what felt like an unseen force trying to keep us back. We rushed toward the door anyway, desperation fueling our speed. Hands reached for me again, icy fingers grazing my arms, but I pushed through the fear. "Just a bit more," I urged. With every ounce of strength, we sprinted into the doorway, colliding into what felt like a wall of energy. The world shifted violently around us, blinding light erupting behind the doorframe. And then, just as quickly as it had begun, everything stopped. I stumbled forward, falling to the ground, gasping for breath. Where are we? I wheezed, looking around. The oppressive darkness had given way to a dimly lit room filled with old furniture and dust. My body trembled, still on high alert, and I realized I wasn't alone. The girl had vanished. Panic coursed through me once more. "Hey!" I called out, but the silence was deafening. I scrambled to my feet, scanning for a sign of her or even Clara. That's when I heard it. A soft, familiar sobbing. I turned, heart racing, and felt a deep sinking in my stomach as I made out the shape of a person huddled in the corner. "Clara?" I whispered, hope blooming as confusion settled like a fog. But the girl's warning echoed in my mind, slicing through my relief. What if the shadows had followed us? What if it was already too late? "Clara?" I whispered again, stepping closer. The figure in the corner remained shrouded in shadows, huddled tightly, hair cascading like a curtain. I felt drawn to her despite every instinct that screamed at me to be cautious. "Help me." The voice was faint, but unmistakably Clara's. My heart surged with urgency as I knelt beside her, ready to reach out. "Clara, I'm here. I'm not going to leave you," I said, my voice shaking slightly. She looked up, her eyes wide and terrified, glimmering in the dim light. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and for the briefest moment, I felt a flicker of hope. But just as I reached out, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the fragile warmth between us. Clara shivered, pressing her back against the wall as if trying to disappear into it. "You have to go. You don't belong here. They'll take you too." "What do you mean?" "I can't leave without you," I insisted, desperation surging through me. I knew the shadows were still looming, and time was slipping away. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the room, vibrating against the walls like a warning. I glanced back, and there, swirling just beyond the doorway, were tendrils of darkness creeping closer, drawn to the connection between Clara and me. "Please, you don't understand," Clara cried, her voice rising with panic. "If you stay, they'll take your light. You can't save me. I'm trapped." "No," I shouted, shaking my head, fighting against the sinking feeling in my chest. "I won't abandon you again." But even as I said it, the shadows surged like a tide, threatening to consume everything in their path. I felt the heat of their anger spilling into the room, narrowing the space between us. Clara reached out a trembling hand, her expression pained. "You need to run." Then I heard a rustling behind me. The girl, the one who had appeared from the darkness, stood just outside the threshold, her face pale. "You have to listen. She's right." "Why?" I exclaimed, turning back to Clara, my heart torn. "Why can't I help you?" The darkness shifted again, exploding into a monstrous form that took shape just beyond the light. A deep growl rumbled, a low and ominous promise of despair. I realized I had to make a choice. "Clara, I can't leave you here," I said, desperation tinged with panic. The shadows were closing in, their whispers climbing in intensity, drowning out reason. With a piercing scream, Clara began to dissolve into wisps of smoke, and an awful realization dawned upon me. I was losing her. "No." Without thought, I lunged toward her, but a harsh grip clamped down on my arm. The girl shouted, "You have to let her go." In that moment, the shadows lunged toward us, reveling in the chaotic energy of my indecision. They surrounded Clara, transforming her shape into a hollow silhouette, fading into darkness. I couldn't accept it. Not again. "Stay with me," I cried out, tears streaming down my face. "I'm not leaving." But Clara's figure swirled and broke apart, scattering into a mist that swirled around the room. I stared, horrified, feeling the intensity of the shadows press into me. They clung like a shroud, whispering my fears, feeding off my sorrow. Suddenly the girl yanked me backwards, pulling me out of the shadow's reach. "There's no time. You have to choose. Run or be consumed. You can't help her now." I could feel their urgency sinking in, but the weight of Clara's disappearance pierced me deeply. My heart urged me to stay, to fight, to do whatever I could. But the shadows twisted with life, and I could hear Clara's voice fading, merging with them as the darkness took over. "Help me." Her voice was barely a whisper now, lost in the chaos. You have to find your own way out. The girl's voice broke through the deafening sound, her grip firm in my palm. There's still a chance for you. Choose. I hesitated, eyes darting toward the remains of Clara's silhouette, overrun by shadows. I don't want to choose. My voice trembled in desperation as the girl pulled me again, urgency radiating from her. The shadows surged closer, a dark wave of despair threatening to engulf everything. I could feel the chill creeping along my spine, and in that moment, clarity struck. Taking a deep breath, I made my choice. I will not be taken, I shouted defiantly, turning my back on the encroaching shadows. I have to live. The girl surged forward, guiding me through the threshold and back into the foyer, just as the shadows lashed out, screaming in rage. A blinding light erupted from the pendant in my pocket, illuminating the room and pushing the darkness back for a moment. Together we dashed towards the exit, my heart hammering in my chest. Keep going, the girl urged. We're almost there. As we raced forward, Clara's voice faded further behind us. A part of me wanted to stop, to turn back and pull her from the clutches of that infernal darkness. But the shadows urged me onward, clawing at my heels, desperate to reclaim their prey. They wouldn't hesitate to drag me into their depths. Finally, we burst through the door and into the cool night air, the oppressive darkness dissolving behind us. Gasping for breath, I turned and saw the inn shrink in the distance, swallowed by night. We did it, I panted, my heart still racing. Yes. The girl nodded, though her eyes were distant, almost mournful. But the shadows will remain. You need to be careful. Darkness can find you anywhere. What do you mean? I asked, blinking in disbelief. Clara. I would have to live with her absence. And then the girl was gone. I looked around, the street now empty, just the wind rustling through the leaves. But the questions lingered like an echo. Where had she gone? What had really happened inside that inn? I wanted to unravel every mystery, to know if Clara was at peace or trapped in that darkness forever. But deep down I understood it was beyond my grasp. As I turned and walked away, I felt the weight of that pendant in my pocket, a reminder of everything I had lost, and the shadows that would forever linger at the edges of my life.